Hello everyone, and welcome to another beer review. Now today is going to be a bit different. We are going to continue with our Belgian beer review series, but this is a kind of a face-off. This is basically kind of a well-known Belgian beer versus a kind of unknown from one of the budget supermarkets. So this didn't exactly work out. I had this all planned in my head, which is unique in itself because it never usually is, but I had this whole idea in my head that I would do 2 big bottles of Belgian beer. The problem is none of the places had the big bottles, they only had the small bottles. So it's Leffe versus St. Pierre. Is that right? Okay, there we go. So there we go. So what we're going to be doing is going to do Leffe. Now, of course, Leffe is a well-known, so it's a Leffe Blonde. And people say, oh, it's not called Leffe. Well, it is actually, because the monastery is actually in the French-speaking side of Belgium, and it's pronounced Leffe in French. It's pronounced Leffe in Flemish, but it isn't Flemish. It's French-speaking side of Belgium. So it's actually pronounced, even the actual name of the actual abbey is Leffe. So there we go. Although I have heard people call it Leffe and all that. What bollocks is that? I don't know. It's just nonsense. But anyway, so it's a blonde beer. So we'll start off with the Leffe. So Leffe Blonde, 6.6%. To get a big bottle, one of the big large bottles, a bit like this one, whoa, and I think it works out for about £3.50 for a big bottle, so it's not too bad. It's a kind of monastery beer, or an abbey beer, if you want to kind of call it. So it's so it's that kind of style of kind of beer. It's owned, the Leffe brand and everything else is actually owned by Anheuser-Busch InBev. Although, of course, the European side of it is all controlled by the InBev side, so it's all controlled that way. So it's heavily marketed, so it's marketed en masse, it's brewed en masse. It's not the kind of little colloquial kind of brewery held in the abbey anymore. No, it's basically a full corporate, basically, from that point of view. So it doesn't really kind of give you much about it. It's this is a 330 ml bottles. It was a 4-pack I had to basically get of them, so unfortunately. I wanted to just get the big bottle, and I think it was about, is it £4.50 for a 4-pack? So there you go. So again, for a 330 ml bottle, it's just over roughly £1.12.5 pence. There we go. How's that for mathematics? Anyway. Now this one is a St. Pierre La Reserve, and it's a blonde, and now again it's expertly brewed to a full flavoured traditional abbey recipe, so this is an equivalent. Now this has come from Aldi, and it was £2.99, and it's 750 ml. So I think so it's at least 50p cheaper than the Leffe, if you're buying it to the equivalent size bottle, because I'm sure the big large bottle is 750 from Leffe, and it's roughly about £3.50 in Tesco's, £3.50. This is 6.5%, whereas the Leffe is 6.6%. There's a bit of spiel on it. St. Pierre Blonde is a blonde Belgian abbey beer, full and fruity with a lightly smoked yeast aroma. The combination with a unique blend of herbs and spices gives the top fermented beer a delicious warm and round flavour. Oh, there's more. Good. The secret of St. Pierre's Abbey beer is the use of a medieval blend of herbs and spices from Bruges. Every town used to have its own beer, each with its own individual character. In Bruges, that character was determined by a unique blend of herbs and spices. In St. Pierre Blonde, the medieval tradition continues. So there you go, marvellous. So we'll crack these open and we'll see what they're like. We'll go with the Leffe first because that's going to be the easiest one to open. Now, if I remember Leffe Blonde, the main usual thing about Leffe Blonde is that there's a bit of bitterness to it, which is a bit unusual for these types of beers because you don't really get so much of the bitterness. Interesting to see what Pierre's like, because of course that's supposed to be got spices and herbs now. Herbs are usually added to beer to give it a more bitter flavour to it. So God, these ones always go well for me. Try not to take the sealing out. Ooh! Right. The worst part is always getting the metal bit off. Once the metal bit's off, that's it. Once I've got my hand on my cork, it's all plain sailing. Oh. Turn the bottle, not the cork. Oh, let me in the bath. Anyway, right. Let's see what this is like. We'll pour it roughly to the kind of same size as well. I get to finish these off if they're any good, so that's not too bad. So I'm kind of done it to the same size. You can see the difference between the head. This is the Leffe, this is the St. Pierre. And they smell quite similar. Let's really kind of break it down, but you can see the head's a bit different. This is more of a finer head. This is more of a kind of, well, prawn cracker. It's really kind of dissipated quite quickly. But let's smell the Leffe first. Yep. You're getting grain. It's like tomato salsa. But yeah, getting grain, kind of wheatish. No real hops or any of that, no florals, none of that. No citrus. My God, how can you make beer without citrus? Anyway. So yeah, there's no citrus aromas, no real floral, so really no hoppy aromas unless you take the kind of grains, but the grains probably coming from the wheat used to actually brew the beer. Right. This is the St. Pierre from Aldi. Let's see what it's like. Getting a bit of wheat, but not as strong as the Leffe. Nothing else. No malt. No hops. It smells quite similar to the Leffe, but not as strong. So I'm going to start with this first. Just by going by aroma, you would probably think that the Leffe would probably taste to have a more stronger flavour or more pronounced flavours compared to this. Just by going by the aromas. So let's see what it's like. Alright. I'm getting wheatish, I'm getting grain. Getting that slight acidity that you're getting with these type of Abbey beers that reminds me of kind of freshly cut tomatoes or salsa. There's that kind of slight acidity. But not really so much. We'll break it down in a minute. Let's see what this was like. The head's really kind of buggered off in this one, isn't it? Get over left. There we go. You're getting more of a wheat flavour and grain flavour from this. A lot more pronounced. Although they actually are quite similar. They're not that far away from each other. So let's break down the St. Pierre. Starts off, you get a little bit of wheat and you're also getting a little bit of malty sweetness to start with. Then the malty sweetness kind of dissipates a bit into the kind of mid-tongue and you're kind of getting more of the kind of wheatish kind of flavour, the kind of grain flavour. and you're starting to get a little bit of the acidity coming through, which I refer to as a kind of like chopped tomatoes or kind of a salsa, tomato salsa, and that kind of acidity, that kind of crispness is what you've got in your aftertaste, and it just kind of gives you that kind of slight kind of well, it's kind of like a kind of a slight kind of fruity tomato-esque kind of flavour, ever so slightly, and then it just dissipates. So let's break down the Leffe. One thing I have noticed is the Leffe has got more carbonation. It's quite a different mouthfeel because of that. This is carbonated a lot more subtly. It's almost like a nail the way it's carbonated. Whereas this is more of a kind of like, it's like almost like an Alsace lager the way it's kind of carbonated. So this has got a completely, I've got to admit, if you just go by mouthfeel straight away, I mean, if you just look how they look at it, you can see how there's more lacing in the glass. This is like a cheap lager in some ways, you know, and just basically how it's carbonated. So this has got a nicer mouthfeel to me because it's not as harsh in the mouth, and you expect quality beers not to be overly carbonated, because there's no point making a really good beer and then you make the mistake of just over carbonating it and you start ruining the mouthfeel and just the kind of experience of drinking the beer because of that. So you would expect brewers who are basically making really good quality beers that know what they're doing and using really good quality ingredients not to make these kind of silly schoolboy errors of over carbonating it, and this does feel it's a bit over carbonated for the type of beer it is, especially when you've got them side by side. So straight away, mouthfeel not quite as nice or as good or as pleasant as the St. Pierre, but let's see what it's like. Straight away, you're getting a lot more wheat. The sweetness is coming in ever so slightly, it's coming in late at the start. So you're getting a lot of wheat, and then you're just starting to get the sweetness coming through just before it goes on to the kind of mid-tongue. Now the mid-tongue is giving you the sweetness carries on, and you've got the kind of wheat flavour just slightly dissipating, but it's still there in the mid-tongue. So there's a lot more wheatiness and grainish to this than it is to that, although they both have that flavouring, but this is stronger and it's there for longer. There you go, that rhymes. Yeah. Anyway, and yeah, you're getting the acidity at the end with a little bit of bitterness. Just a little bit of bitterness on the aftertaste, but you are getting that little bit of acidity, but not as strong as it is with this St. Pierre. So you're getting more bitterness at the end, but again, we're talking about very light bitterness. I mean, they are blonde beers, so when I say bitter, there is an ever so slight souring. So we're getting acidic and ever so slightly bitterness with the aftertaste of the Leffe, where you're just getting the kind of you're getting a bit of a freshness and acidity with the aftertaste of the St. Pierre. Now, in a blind taste test, I'd be totally honest, if I was in the blind taste test and I would say that one of them's going to be Aldi and one of them's going to be Leffe, I would probably, just straight away in the mouthfeel, I would probably if I'm looking for the slight bitterness, then that would maybe give me an idea that which one was Leffe and which one wasn't. But just in the mouthfeel, I would probably imagine that the kind of more harsher mouthfeel would be the Aldi one. And in this case, it's not true. Right, yeah. They really aren't that far away. They really are fairly kind of close. Like I said, better mouthfeel with the Aldi St. Pierre than the Leffe. The Leffe is just a bit harsher, a bit overly carbonated. If you like the wheat beer, kind of more kind of wheat kind of flavourings and want them really pronounced, then of course the Leffe has more of that. It has a stronger kind of wheatish and greenish flavours, especially at the start of the mouth and mid-tongue, so they're stronger, and like I say, they last for longer. Whereas the St. Pierre just has that little bit of sweetness as well, just a little underlying sweetness from the kind of start to the mid-tongue. Of course, by the time it gets towards the aftertaste, that kind of sweetness is gone and you're getting that little acidity coming through. But it's a kind of a fresh acidity compared to more of a kind of bitterness and acidity with the Leffe. And I'll be totally honest, out of the two right now, side by side, I'm actually enjoying the St. Pierre more. Which is a pity because I've only got one bottle of St. Pierre and I've got another 3 bottles of the bloody Leffe to go. I'll just show you. So yes, that's what I've got left to drink of the Leffe. Just by the mouthfeel, it slightly kind of put me off as well because I feel quite disappointed by that. It's a kind of like a silly error to make. It just doesn't feel as kind of well finished because of that. I think it's just like, you know, it's kind of a bit of a slapdash kind of thing. Like we've made your good beer and that type of stuff, like quickly carbonated, slap it in the bottle because we've got to make millions and millions of bottles. And it's like, you've ruined a good bloody product a bit to a certain degree. I'm not saying it's completely ruined, but the case is you have kind of changed it to its detriment, you know what I mean? You haven't helped it or supported it, you've actually done something to kind of lessen the quality. But yeah. The St. Pierre is more subtle, I'll say that, it is more subtle. The Leffe, for the wheatiness and everything else, it's on point. You are getting that slight bitterness, and of course you're getting a kind of, you are getting a malty sweetness. The malty sweetness isn't really there at the start. You're getting the malty sweetness in the kind of mid-tongue, and it is. It's like kind of a. It's like kind of almost a kind of a slightly granola kind of flavouring in the mid-tongue. I do like Leffe, and I do like their flavour profiles. I mean, between the two, Leffe is more stand out with its flavour profiles than the St. Pierre. But looking at them, the St. Pierre has a nicer mouthfeel than that. And it's just slightly hankering because when you're drinking these type of beers, I mean, they come in 4-packs. It's very, I mean, you can't usually, I could not buy Leffe in this bottle, just one bottle. I just couldn't, because they don't sell them that. So you'd have to buy it as a 4-pack, like this, or you'd have to buy it as a big bottle, which would be like that. So, again, it's designed for drinking. It's designed for, well, you can share it, or you can sit there, well, I can have a 4-pack to myself, or a big bottle to myself. Nobody's going to sit there and think, well, it's not like a bottle of wine, you know, when you want a glass and I have a glass. It doesn't really happen that way. It's a bit kind of, well, I've got one bottle here, use a bottle for yourself. So yeah, so it's designed for really drinking. They are slightly sessionable in some ways, but I would say because of the carbonation, it's making Leffe, regardless of how good the flavour is, it's just making the kind of experience and the pleasure of drinking it less. And it is affecting the sessionability of it, just because it's just a bit over-carbonated. Whereas the St. Pierre is they haven't made the same mistake with this one. Okay, I would probably say that some of the flavour profiles compared to the Leffe are scaled down, they're a bit more subtle. But seriously, it really isn't a bad beer. How would I mark them out of 10? Now there's a laugh. It's going to be a bit of a difficult one. Out of 10, right. I'm going to give the Leffe a 6. It should be higher, but I'm really quite annoyed with the carbonation. As you probably realise, because I've mentioned it so many bloody times, you're probably sitting thinking, yeah, we know you said it, go on, move on, go on. But yeah, I'm going to give it a 6. It should be probably closer to a 7 at least, but I've got to take that off. The St. Pierre, wow. I'm going to give the St. Pierre 7 as well. Now people are going to say, well, why are you going to do that? Because there's going to be other people that reviewed this saying, oh, it's not that good. Going head to head, I'm not going by memory, I'm basically going for what's on the table right now and what I can actually taste. And the St. Pierre isn't that far away from Leffe. It isn't that far away with the flavour profiles. They are a bit more subtle, but the flavour profiles they're in slightly different places, which is fine, that's not a problem. But with the mouthfeel, it's just added to it. So I would probably say normally if they were basically side by side and Leffe had the same kind of mouthfeel and the same kind of level of carbonation, it would probably, one would be a 7 and one would be a 6. Whereas right now I would say they're both a 6 from that point of view. But I'm going to give it to St. Pierre. I'm going to give it a 6.5 actually. I'm going to give it more. I'm going to say that St. Pierre right now, side by side, is a nicer beer to drink, and that's what it comes down to. Fuck reputation and fuck all this other nonsense. Oh, you can't do it. No, I'm basically going for what's in front of me, and St. Pierre is actually slightly nicer to drink right now. Between that bottle and that bottle, the St. Pierre is the nicer one to drink. Just because of mouthfeel and the flavour profiles, they are a bit more subtle, but at the end of the day, both have very similar kind of flavour profiles. They tick the boxes. One, if you're buying them equivalent of 750ml bottles, one's 50 pence cheaper than the other, so you've also got to take that on as well. St. Pierre is not that far away from Leffe, and with a nicer mouthfeel and 50 pence cheaper a bottle, so if we're buying 2 bottles I'm saving £1, and remember that's 1.5 litres. So you can see why I'm going to say, well, I'm going to give St. Pierre the win in this one. Les missed out, and they missed out on something so silly that if the carbonation was less and it was, I mean, you can see one's actually still got a bit of, you know, life, and this is the kind of lesser carbonated. The over carbonated one is like, you know, it's like almost like a mill pond, but by God you notice it when you actually get it in your mouth. I mean, straight in your tongue, this is attacking your tongue with the carbonation. This isn't. This is a lot gentler, a lot nicer on the mouth. So yeah, well done Aldi, well done St. Pierre, whoever's making the actual beer from. Does it say who's making the beer from? No. Doesn't really say, it just says it's made for Aldi stores, but it doesn't give us any more kind of details than that. But yeah, my recommendation, if you want a kind of more kind of a Belgian blonde kind of wheat beer, then I would turn around and say go to Aldi and pay £2.99 for St. Pierre, and you'll get a nice beer with a nice drinking experience. If you want to follow the kind of the advertising, the marketing and go for Leffe, then fine, I don't see any problem with that. But head to head, it's just not as nice an experience to drink, although the flavours are very nice. So there you go. It's been a longer video, but of course it has been obviously 2 beers being reviewed at the same time. And yeah, it's 1-0 to Aldi. Now you're saying 1-0, what does that mean? But we will be having extra of these head-to-heads coming up. There is going to be an Aldi. Aldi's actually doing a kind of Hogarth kind of coffee or whatever, that type of stuff. So this is another premium wheat beer, but this of course is a pure wheat beer rather than just a blonde, although the blonde is a wheat-based beer as well. But these are brewed as a wheat beer, whereas these are brewed as a blonde, but with very similar kind of ingredients. So from that point of view, but yes. So we will be doing that. We will be doing Hogarden versus Hofligen. No, Hofligen, and which is a kind of Dutch Flemish kind of pronunciation. So Hofligen versus Hogarden, that will be coming up in the future. So right now it's 1-0 to Aldi. Well, basically the big brand Belgian brewers make it 1-0, and the next one will be 2-0 to Aldi. So if you really care, which you probably don't, because I don't really give a shit. I do actually, but you know, if you don't give a shit, don't bother. But if you do, then tune in for the next one, because that'll be quite good. But in the meantime, 1-0 to Aldi. But disappointing from Leffe. Strange that, but I just didn't expect that. But anyway, 1-0 to Leffe. Thanks for watching. Cheers, and bye for now.